Nobody showed up for my thesis defense. Not my husband, not my daughter. They all went to my sister's birthday instead. But as soon as I got my diploma, my phone exploded with calls from my husband. Call me back immediately. 38 missed calls I'll never forget the morning of my thesis defense. The alarm went off at 6 a.m., and I remember lying there for a moment, staring at the ceiling of our bedroom in our little house in suburban Denver. The morning light was filtering through the cream-colored curtains Sarah had picked out 3 years ago when we first moved in. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life unfold. My name is Jessica, and after 6 years of night classes, weekend study sessions, and countless sacrifices, I was finally going to defend my master's thesis in education. 6 years of juggling my full-time job as a third-grade teacher, taking care of my daughter Emma, and trying to be a good wife to my husband Mike. 6 years of falling asleep over textbooks at the kitchen table while everyone else was watching Netflix. I could hear Mike's heavy breathing next to me. He was still asleep, one arm thrown over his face the way he always slept. For a second, I wanted to wake him up, to share this moment with him. Today was supposed to be the biggest day of my professional life. But something held me back. Maybe it was the conversation we'd had the night before. "Jess, you know tomorrow is Linda's birthday party, right?" Mike had said while loading the dishwasher. Linda was my younger sister, the one who'd always been the center of attention in our family. The pretty one, the fun one, the one who married rich and threw elaborate parties for every occasion. "Of course I know," I'd replied, trying to keep the hurt out of my voice. "But you also know tomorrow is my thesis defense." Right, he'd mumbled, not really looking at me. "What time is that again?" I'd told him for the third time that week. 2 p.m., room 214 in the education building. I'd even written it on the calendar by the refrigerator, the same calendar where Linda's party was marked in bright red ink. Linda's 40th, 6 p.m. at the country club. Emma had bounded into the kitchen then, her blonde curls bouncing. She was 15 and had inherited her Aunt Linda's natural charm and my stubborn streak. "Mom, can I get my nails done before Aunt Linda's party? All my cousins are going to be there, and I want to look nice." "What about coming to Mom's defense first?" Mike had asked, but his tone was casual, like he was asking if she wanted ketchup with her fries. "Do I have to?" Emma had whined. "It's just going to be a bunch of boring professor stuff. Besides, Aunt Linda said she'd pay for mani-pedis for all the girls." I'd felt something crack inside my chest, but I just smiled and said, "We'll figure it out." Now, lying in bed on the morning of my defense, I tried to push away the growing certainty that I'd be sitting in that room alone. I got up quietly, padding to the bathroom in my bare feet. The tile was cold against my skin, and I caught sight of myself in the mirror. 38 years old, with fine lines starting around my eyes and gray threads in my brown hair that I kept meaning to color. When had I started looking so tired? I showered and dressed carefully in the navy blue suit I'd bought specifically for this day. It was the nicest thing I owned, purchased during a lunch break 2 months ago with money I'd saved from my modest teacher's salary. As I applied lipstick, I could hear Mike's alarm going off in the bedroom, followed by his groan and the sound of his feet hitting the floor. "Morning, honey," he said when he shuffled into the bathroom. "Big day today." "Yes," I said simply. "For both of us, I guess." He paused in the middle of squeezing toothpaste onto his brush. "What do you mean?" "Well, my defense and Linda's party." "Oh, right." He started brushing his teeth vigorously. Through the foam, he mumbled, "You're still okay with us coming to your thing first, right? Before the party?" Something in his tone made my stomach twist, but I nodded. "Of course. It starts at 2, remember? You'll have plenty of time to get to Linda's party afterward." He spit and rinsed. "Actually, Jess, I've been thinking. Emma's really excited about spending time with her cousins, and Linda asked if we could come early to help set up. You know how she gets when she's throwing a party." I stared at him in the mirror. "Help set up?" "Yeah, she's been texting me all week. Something about needing Mike's strong arms to move furniture." He said it with a little laugh, like it was charming how much my sister needed him. "But you promised you'd be there for my defense." I know. But it's just going to be you talking to some professors, right? It's not like it's graduation or anything. Besides, you're going to pass. You always do well with this stuff." The casual dismissal hit me like a physical blow. This stuff was 6 years of my life. This stuff was the reason I'd missed Emma's soccer games and date nights and family dinners. This stuff was supposed to open doors for me, maybe let me become a principal or curriculum coordinator someday. "Mike," I said carefully, "this is really important to me." "I know it is, babe, and I'm proud of you, you know that. But Linda's my sister-in-law too, and family comes first, right?" I wanted to scream that I was his family, that Emma was his family, that we should come first. But the words stuck in my throat, the way they always did when it came to disappointing people or making demands. "Fine," I heard myself say. "Go to Linda's party." "Thanks, Jess. You're the best." He kissed my cheek quickly and headed back to the bedroom to get dressed. I stood there in the bathroom for a long time after he left, staring at my reflection. The woman looking back at me seemed like a stranger. When had I become someone who said fine when I meant, "This is breaking my heart"? Downstairs, Emma was already eating cereal at the kitchen counter, scrolling through her phone. She was wearing her favorite jeans and a crop top I'd told her was too revealing for school about a dozen times. "Morning, sweetheart," I said, trying to inject some normalcy into my voice. "Morning," she replied without looking up. "Dad said we're going to Aunt Linda's early to help set up. Can I invite Maddie to come with us? What about my thesis defense?" Emma finally looked up from her phone, and for a moment I saw a flicker of something that might have been guilt. "Oh, right, that's today. At 2 o'clock. I know, Mom. It's just..." She sighed dramatically. "Aunt Linda's parties are legendary, and all my cousins will be there. When am I going to see them again?" "You saw them at Christmas. That was like 8 months ago. Come on, Mom. You know how important family is." There was that word again. Family. As if I wasn't part of their family. As if my achievement didn't matter to the people who were supposed to love me most. "Okay," I said quietly. "Go to the party." Emma brightened immediately. "Really? Thanks, Mom. You're the best. I'll make it up to you, I promise." But we both knew she wouldn't, and I wouldn't ask her to. The morning passed in a blur of last-minute preparations. I reviewed my notes one more time, printed extra copies of my presentation, and triple-checked that my laptop would connect to the projector in the conference room. I'd been working on this thesis for 2 years, researching innovative teaching methods for elementary students with learning disabilities. It was work I was passionate about, work that could actually make a difference in kids' lives. At noon, I sat down to eat a sandwich, but my stomach was too knotted to manage more than a few bites. Mike came into the kitchen wearing khakis and a button-down shirt, his nice outfit that he usually reserved for church and family gatherings. "You look handsome," I said, meaning it. "Thanks. You look great too." He glanced at his watch. "Listen, Emma and I are going to head over to Linda's now. You sure you're okay with this?" "I'm sure," I lied. He kissed the top of my head. "Knock 'em dead, Professor." We'll celebrate tonight when you get home. But I knew there wouldn't be any celebrating. By the time I got home, they'd be exhausted from the party and ready for bed. My moment would have passed, absorbed into the ordinary rhythm of our lives like it had never happened at all. Emma appeared in the doorway, her purse slung over her shoulder. "Bye, Mom. Good luck with your professor thing." "Thanks, honey." And then they were gone, and the house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of our neighbor mowing his lawn. I sat at the kitchen table for a few more minutes, looking at the calendar on the wall. My defense was written in small, neat letters in black ink. Linda's party sprawled across the square in red marker, complete with little drawn balloons and exclamation points. The contrast was almost funny, if it weren't so heartbreaking. At 1:15, I gathered my things and drove to the university. The campus was mostly empty. It was summer, and most students were gone. I parked in the lot behind the education building and sat in my car for a moment, watching other people walk by. A young woman about Emma's age was talking animatedly on her phone. An older man in a maintenance uniform was emptying trash cans. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that someone nearby was about to defend 6 years of work to an audience of no one. The education building was one of the newer ones on campus, all glass and steel with modern furniture in the lobby. I took the elevator to the second floor and found room 214. It was a small conference room with a long table surrounded by chairs, a projector mounted on the ceiling, and windows that looked out onto the quad. My thesis committee was already there. Dr. Martinez, my advisor, who had been incredibly supportive throughout the whole process. Dr. Kim, a specialist in learning disabilities, and Dr. Thompson, who was known for asking tough questions but fair ones. They were chatting among themselves when I walked in, and they all smiled when they saw me. "Jessica, ready for this?" Dr. Martinez asked warmly. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, setting up my laptop. "Where's your cheering section?" Dr. Kim asked, glancing toward the door. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "Oh, they had a family commitment they couldn't get out of." The professors exchanged glances, and I could see the sympathy in their eyes. Dr. Martinez cleared her throat. "Well, we're excited to hear what you've been working on." The defense itself went well. Better than well, actually. I presented my research on multisensory learning approaches for students with dyslexia, answered their questions confidently, and even managed to engage them in an interesting discussion about implementation strategies. For 45 minutes, I forgot about Mike and Emma and Linda's party. I remembered why I'd started this journey in the first place, remembered the teacher I wanted to become. When they asked me to step outside while they deliberated, I felt a familiar flutter of nerves, but also a sense of accomplishment. I'd done it. Whatever happened with my family, I'd done the work and presented it well. I waited in the hallway, pacing a little and checking my phone. No messages, no good luck texts or thinking of you calls. I wondered what they were doing at Linda's party right now. Probably drinking cocktails on the country club patio, admiring Linda's new dress or her latest home renovation project. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 10 minutes, Dr. Martinez opened the conference room door and smiled at me. "Congratulations, Dr. Sullivan. You passed with distinction." The title hit me like a physical force. Dr. Sullivan. After 6 years of night classes and weekend study sessions, after countless papers and presentations and moments of doubt, I was finally Dr. Jessica Sullivan. "Thank you," I managed to say. And I meant it more than they could know. We shook hands all around, and Dr. Martinez handed me a folder with my official results. "You should be very proud, Jessica," This is excellent work, and I know it's going to make a real difference for students. I walked back to my car in a daze, clutching the folder to my chest. The late afternoon sun was warm on my face, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy. Not the forced cheerfulness I'd been wearing around Mike and Emma, but real, deep satisfaction. I sat in my car and called Mike's number, wanting to share this moment with him despite everything. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, then went to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Mike Sullivan. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." "Hey, it's me," I said after the beep. "I passed. I'm officially Dr. Sullivan now. Call me back when you get this." I tried Emma next, with the same result. Her voicemail was a recording of her and her best friend Maddie giggling and saying they were too busy being awesome to answer their phones. "Hi, sweetheart. Just wanted to let you know your mom is now Dr. Mom. Love you." I drove home slowly, taking the long way through downtown. The streets were busy with Saturday afternoon traffic. Families heading to dinner or movies or whatever normal people did when they weren't defending graduate theses. I stopped at a red light next to a restaurant with outdoor seating and watched a family of 4 sharing appetizers and laughing at something on the father's phone. The mother was leaning against her husband's shoulder, and their teenage kids were actually engaged in conversation instead of staring at their devices. It looked so easy, so natural. I wondered what their secret was. At home, I poured myself a glass of wine, the good stuff I'd been saving for this exact moment, and sat on the back porch. Our yard was small but well maintained, with flower beds I'd planted when we first moved in and a vegetable garden that Mike had helped me build. It was peaceful here, with the late afternoon light filtering through the maple tree we'd planted for Emma's 10th birthday. I called Mike again. Voicemail. I called Emma. Voicemail. I tried texting Mike. "Defended successfully. I'm Dr. Sullivan now. Can't wait to celebrate with you both." No response. As the evening wore on, I made myself a simple dinner and ate it alone on the porch. I tried not to think about what was happening at Linda's party. Tried not to picture Mike laughing at her jokes or Emma taking selfies with her cousins. Instead, I focused on the feeling of accomplishment, on the weight of the folder containing my official results. But as the hours passed and my phone remained silent, hurt began to creep in around the edges of my satisfaction. This was supposed to be our celebration. Mike was supposed to take me to dinner somewhere nice, maybe that Italian place we went to for our anniversary. Emma was supposed to post something on social media about her smart mom, the way she did when her friends accomplished things. By 9 o'clock, I was starting to worry. The party had been scheduled to start at 6, which meant they'd been there for 3 hours already. Even if they were having a good time, surely they would have checked their phones by now. Surely they would have wanted to know how the defense went. I tried calling again. Mike's phone went straight to voicemail this time, which meant it was either turned off or dead. At 10:30, I heard Mike's truck pull into the driveway. I was still sitting on the porch, now wearing a cardigan against the evening chill, my empty wine glass on the table beside me. I heard the truck doors slam, heard Emma's voice saying something about being tired, heard Mike's keys jingling as he unlocked the front door. I stayed where I was, waiting for one of them to notice my car in the garage, to realize I was home, to come looking for me. The house was quiet for a few minutes. Then I heard footsteps on the hardwood floors. The porch door opened, and Mike appeared, looking slightly disheveled and smelling like alcohol. "Hey," he said, sitting down in the chair across from me. "How'd it go?" "I passed," I said simply. "That's great, babe. I knew you would." He was trying to sound enthusiastic, but I could hear the exhaustion in his voice. Sorry we didn't make it. Linda's party was a lot. I tried calling you. Yeah, my phone died. I forgot to bring my charger. He rubbed his face with both hands. Emma had a great time with her cousins. She needed that, you know. She's been so stressed with school starting soon. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. So, Dr. Sullivan, he said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. How does it feel? Lonely, I said before I could stop myself. The grin faded. Jess, it's fine, I said quickly. I understand. Family comes first, right? Your family too. Am I? The question came out sharper than I'd intended. Because today it felt like I was very much on my own. Mike was quiet for a long moment, looking out at our darkening yard. Finally, he said, Linda asked about you. She felt bad that you couldn't make it to the party. I could have made it. The defense was over by 3:30. You could have come? Yes, Mike. I could have come to Linda's party. I could have celebrated my 6 years of hard work by helping my sister-in-law arrange centerpieces and listening to her complain about the caterer. That's not fair. Isn't it? I stood up, suddenly too agitated to sit still. When was the last time any of you came to something that was important to me? When was the last time Linda asked how my thesis was going, or Emma bragged to her friends about her mom going back to school? You never said you wanted us to. I shouldn't have to ask, Mike. I shouldn't have to beg my family to show up for the biggest professional achievement of my life. We stared at each other across the porch, and I could see him trying to find the right words, trying to figure out how to make this better, without actually admitting he'd made a mistake. We'll make it up to you, he said finally. Tomorrow we'll go out to dinner, just the three of us. Wherever you want. Okay, I said, because it was easier than continuing the fight. But we both knew that dinner tomorrow wouldn't erase the empty chairs in that conference room today. Mike went inside, and I stayed on the porch for a while longer, listening to the sounds of him and Emma getting ready for bed. Normal domestic noises. The television turning on and off, water running in the bathroom, Emma's bedroom door closing. The soundtrack of a life that had somehow learned to function perfectly well without me at the center of it. The next morning was Sunday, and we all slept late. When I finally came downstairs around 10, Mike was making pancakes, his go-to gesture when he felt guilty about something. Emma was at the kitchen counter, still in her pajamas, scrolling through photos from the night before. Morning, Mom, she said without looking up. Dad's making your favorite. Blueberry pancakes, Mike announced, flipping one with a flourish. For our newly minted doctor. I poured myself coffee and sat down next to Emma. Can I see the pictures? She hesitated for just a moment, then turned her phone toward me. The photos were exactly what I'd expected. Emma and her cousins making silly faces, Mike and Linda's husband Dave standing by the bar with beers, Linda in a stunning red dress surrounded by friends and family, everyone looking glamorous and happy. Looks like you had a great time, I said. It was amazing. Aunt Linda really knows how to throw a party. Emma swiped to the next photo, which showed her and Mike dancing together, both of them laughing. Dad's actually not a terrible dancer when he tries. I looked at Mike, who was concentrating very hard on the pancakes. I didn't know you danced anymore. Linda insisted, he said without turning around. You know how she is. Actually, I did know how Linda was. She was the kind of woman who could convince people to do things they didn't normally do, who had a way of making you feel special when she focused her attention on you. She was also the kind of woman who had always gotten what she wanted, including attention from men who were technically unavailable. Did you tell everyone about Mom's defense? Emma asked Mike. Of course, he said quickly. Everyone was very impressed. But something in his tone made me doubt him. I suspected my achievement had been mentioned briefly, if at all, before the conversation moved on to more interesting topics, like Linda's upcoming vacation to Europe, or her youngest daughter's acceptance to college. We ate breakfast together, and Mike kept up a steady stream of chatter about the party, about how good the food was, and how nice the country club looked with all the decorations. Emma chimed in with stories about her cousins and their various dramas and achievements. I listened and nodded and made appropriate responses. But part of me felt like I was watching the scene from outside myself, like I was observing someone else's family. After breakfast, Mike suggested we go out for a drive, maybe visit the farmer's market downtown. It was clearly part of his plan to make up for missing my defense, and I could see Emma rolling her eyes at his obvious guilt-motivated enthusiasm. Actually, I said, I think I'd like to spend the day alone. Maybe go to the bookstore, walk around the park, decompress a little. Mike looked hurt, but I thought we were going to celebrate. We can celebrate tonight at dinner, like you promised. Okay, sure, whatever you want. I could tell he was relieved, and that stung more than I wanted to admit. The idea of spending the day trying to manufacture celebration felt exhausting anyway. I drove to the downtown area of our city, a place I rarely visited anymore since most of my time was spent shuttling between home, school, and work. It was a beautiful summer day, and the streets were busy with people enjoying their weekend. I parked near the independent bookstore that had been there since I was a child and wandered the aisles. Running my fingers along the spines of books I might finally have time to read, now that my thesis was finished. I bought a novel I'd been wanting to read for months and found a coffee shop with outdoor seating. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I had nowhere I needed to be, nothing I needed to study, no papers to grade or lessons to plan. I could just sit and read and drink good coffee and watch people walk by. It should have felt liberating, but instead, I felt oddly empty. For 6 years, my thesis had been the thing driving me forward, the goal that made all the sacrifice worthwhile. Now it was finished, and I wasn't sure what came next. My phone buzzed with a text from my friend Rachel, who I'd met in one of my education classes. "How did the defense go? I've been thinking about you." I typed back, "I passed. Dr. Sullivan now officially." "That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. We need to celebrate." "Thanks. It still doesn't feel real." How was the family celebration? Did Mike cry with pride? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. They had a family commitment they couldn't get out of. They what? Are you kidding me? It's fine. We're celebrating tonight instead. Jess, that is not fine. This was the biggest day of your academic life. Rachel's outrage on my behalf felt good and terrible at the same time. Good because it validated what I was feeling. Terrible because it confirmed that yes, my family's absence was as hurtful as I thought it was. "It's complicated," I typed back. "It shouldn't be. You deserve better than that." I put my phone away without responding because I didn't know what to say. Did I deserve better? Or was I being overly sensitive, expecting too much from people who had their own lives and priorities? I spent the afternoon wandering around downtown, visiting shops I'd forgotten existed, sitting by the river that ran through the center of the city. It was peaceful and melancholy at the same time, like I was saying goodbye to something without knowing exactly what. When I got home around 5, Mike and Emma were in the living room watching a movie. They both looked up when I walked in, and I could see the question in their eyes. Was I still upset about yesterday? "How was your day?" Mike asked carefully. "Good. Relaxing." I sat down on the edge of the couch. "Are we still going to dinner?" "Absolutely. I made reservations at Romano's for 7. Romano's was the Italian restaurant we went to for special occasions. Mike was clearly trying to make an effort, and I appreciated it, even if it felt a little forced. "I need to shower and change," I said. "Take your time. We're not in any rush." In the shower, I let myself cry for the first time since the defense. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears that mixed with the hot water and washed down the drain. I was grieving something, though I wasn't sure exactly what. The end of my thesis project, maybe. Or the realization that my family and I had very different ideas about what mattered. When I came downstairs dressed for dinner, Mike and Emma were waiting by the front door. Mike was wearing the same khakis and button-down from yesterday, and Emma had put on a sundress and sandals. They both looked nice, and they were both trying hard to seem enthusiastic about celebrating my achievement. Dinner was pleasant enough. The restaurant was busy but not too loud, and our server was attentive without being intrusive. Mike ordered a bottle of wine and made a toast to Dr. Sullivan. And Emma told me she was proud of me. And for a couple of hours, it felt like we were a normal family celebrating a normal milestone. But underneath the pleasant conversation and forced cheer, I could feel something shifting between us. Maybe it had been shifting for a while, and I was just now noticing it. Mike kept checking his phone, and Emma seemed distracted, like she was thinking about something else. When Mike asked about my plans now that the thesis was finished, I realized I didn't have any plans. I'd been so focused on getting to this point that I hadn't thought about what came after. "Maybe I'll look into doctoral programs," I said, half joking. Emma groaned. "More school? Mom, you've been in school forever." "Or maybe I'll just enjoy having my evenings back for a while." "That sounds nice," Mike said. But there was something in his tone that made me think he was already planning how to fill those evenings with other commitments. We drove home in comfortable silence, and I tried to convince myself that this was enough. A nice dinner, kind words, the acknowledgement of my achievement. It was more than some people got, more than I'd had any right to expect, given how strained things had been between us lately. But as we pulled into our driveway, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed in my relationship with both Mike and Emma. They had shown me, without meaning to, how they really prioritized my needs and accomplishments. And I had shown myself that I was capable of achieving something significant without their support. That night, lying in bed next to Mike, I stared at the ceiling and tried to imagine what my life would look like going forward. For 6 years, I'd had a clear goal and a path toward it. Now I felt like I was standing at a crossroads without a map, not sure which direction to go. Mike's breathing had settled into the steady rhythm of sleep, and I could hear Emma's music playing softly through her bedroom wall. Normal sounds of a normal household. But I felt like an outsider looking in. I thought about Dr. Martinez calling me Dr. Sullivan in that conference room, about the pride in her voice when she said my work would make a difference for students. I thought about Rachel's outrage on my behalf, about the way she'd said, "You deserve better." Maybe I did deserve better. Maybe the problem wasn't that I was asking for too much, but that I'd been settling for too little for too long. I must have fallen asleep eventually because I woke up to my alarm on Monday morning. Mike was already in the shower, and Emma was moving around in her room, getting ready for school. The beginning of another normal week, except that now I was Dr. Sullivan, and somehow everything felt different. Over the next few days, I found myself paying attention to small things I'd somehow stopped noticing. The way Mike's face lit up when Linda texted him, compared to his distracted when I tried to tell him about my day. The way Emma automatically assumed I'd drive her places and help with her homework and do her laundry, but rarely asked about my own interests or goals. The way both of them seemed to view my teaching career as something that fit conveniently around their needs, rather than as something important in its own right. It wasn't that they were bad people or that they didn't love me. But somewhere along the way, I'd become the supporting character in my own life. The person who made everyone else's dreams possible, while quietly shelving my own. On Thursday evening, I was grading papers at the kitchen table when Mike came in from work. He kissed the top of my head absently and started rifling through the mail. "Oh, Linda's having a pool party this weekend," he said, holding up an invitation. "Saturday afternoon. Should be fun." "Another party?" I asked, without looking up from the essay I was reading. "It's summer. She likes to entertain." He paused, and I could feel him watching me. "You'll come, right? She specifically asked about you." "I'm sure she did." "What's that supposed to mean?" I set down my pen and looked at him. "Nothing. It doesn't mean anything." But it did mean something, and we both knew it. It meant I was tired of being an afterthought. Tired of having my schedule rearranged around Linda's social calendar. Tired of pretending that my sister-in-law's pool parties were more important than the goals I'd spent 6 years working toward. "You've been weird all week," Mike said, sitting down across from me. "Ever since your defense thing." "My defense thing?" I repeated. "You mean my thesis defense? The thing I've been working toward for 6 years? You know what I mean. You've been distant." "I've been thinking." "About what?" I looked at him sitting there in his work clothes, his hair a little mussed from the day, his face showing genuine confusion about why I might be upset. He really didn't understand what he'd done wrong, which somehow made it worse. "About what I want my life to look like going forward," I said finally. "What do you mean? Your life is fine. Our life is fine." "Is it?" "Of course it is. We have a nice house, good jobs, a healthy daughter. What more do you want?" "I want to matter," I said quietly. "I want the people I love to show up when I need them to show up." Mike's face softened. "Jess, you know you matter to us. Just because we missed one afternoon." It wasn't one afternoon, Mike. It was the culmination of 6 years of work. It was the biggest professional achievement of my life. And you chose to help Linda move furniture instead of being there for me. She's family. So am I. Or at least I thought I was. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the weight of unspoken truths settling between us. Finally, Mike reached across the table and took my hand. "You're right," he said. "I screwed up. We screwed up. But it's not because you don't matter to us. It's because, I don't know. I guess I just thought you were so capable, so strong, that you didn't need us there the way Linda needs help with her parties. Everyone needs support, Mike. Even capable people. Especially capable people. I know. I'm sorry." He meant it, I could tell. But apologies couldn't change the fact that when I'd needed him most, he'd chosen someone else. And they couldn't change the growing realization that this pattern had been repeating itself for years, so gradually that I hadn't noticed until now. "I forgive you," I said, and I meant it. But forgiveness didn't automatically fix everything that was broken between us. The pool party turned out to be just as I'd expected. Linda holding court in a designer swimsuit while everyone else fetched drinks and complimented her new landscaping. Emma spent the afternoon in the pool with her cousins, and Mike appointed himself grill master, clearly enjoying being useful and appreciated. I sat in a lounge chair with a book, occasionally joining conversations, but mostly observing. Linda made a point of asking about my graduation, as she called it, and several people congratulated me with the kind of polite enthusiasm you'd show for someone's minor hobby achievement. Then the conversation moved on to more interesting topics. Vacation plans, home renovations, whose teenager was causing the most drama. At one point, Linda's friend Monica asked what I planned to do with my new degree. "I'm exploring my options," I said vaguely. "That's so inspiring," Monica gushed. "I keep saying I want to go back to school, but with 3 kids and everything." "It's never too late," I replied, then excused myself to get another drink. At the bar table, I ran into Dave, Linda's husband. He was a nice enough man, successful in business and devoted to Linda, though he always seemed a little overwhelmed by her social energy. "Congratulations on finishing your degree," he said. "Linda told me it was a big deal." "Thank you. It feels good to be done." "I bet. I don't know how you managed it with work and family." "Linda's always saying how she doesn't know where you find the time." Something in his tone made me look at him more carefully. "Does she?" Dave glanced around, then leaned closer. "Between you and me, I think she's a little jealous. She's been talking about going back to school herself, but she never follows through." Jealous? The idea had never occurred to me. Linda's used to being the center of attention, you know, the successful sister. And here you are, getting advanced degrees and building a career while raising a family. It makes her feel like she's not doing enough with her life. I stared at him, processing this information. She throws amazing parties. She volunteers for every charity in town. She's raised 3 beautiful children. I know, but it's not the same as having your own professional accomplishments, is it? At least, that's how she sees it. Dave wandered off to check on the grill, leaving me standing there with a plastic cup of wine and a head full of new thoughts. Was it possible that Linda's need for attention and celebration wasn't just narcissism, but insecurity? Was it possible that my family's gravitation toward her events was about more than just fun and social obligations? I looked across the patio at Linda, who was showing off her new ring to a group of admiring friends. She caught my eye and waved, smiling brightly. And for a moment, I saw past the perfect exterior to something more vulnerable underneath. The revelation didn't excuse Mike and Emma's absence from my defense, but it added a layer of complexity to my hurt feelings. Maybe Linda hadn't deliberately tried to upstage my achievement. Maybe she just needed to feel important and valued, the same way I did. The realization was both comforting and disturbing. Comforting because it meant the slight might not have been intentional. Disturbing because it suggested that all of us, Linda, Mike, Emma, me, were struggling with the same basic need for recognition and support. But we were terrible at giving it to each other. On the drive home, Emma chattered about her cousins and the gossip she'd picked up at the party. Mike was in a good mood, energized by an afternoon of grilling and male bonding. I listened to them with half my attention, while the other half turned over everything Dave had told me. "Did you have a good time?" Mike asked as we pulled into our driveway. "It was fine," I said. "Linda certainly knows how to bring people together." "She does. That's her gift, I guess. Making people feel welcome and important." I wanted to point out that Linda's gift for making people feel important seemed to work on everyone except me. But I held my tongue. We were in a good place right now, and I didn't want to ruin it with another argument about attention and priorities. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Mike and I sat on the porch with glasses of wine, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. It was peaceful and intimate in a way we hadn't experienced in months. "I've been thinking about what you said," Mike began. "About wanting to matter. And you do matter, Jess. To me, to Emma, to your students. Maybe we're just not good at showing it. Maybe not. I want to do better. We both do." I believed him, but I also knew that wanting to change and actually changing were two different things. People fell back into familiar patterns, especially when those patterns had been established over years. "What would that look like?" I asked. "Doing better?" Mike was quiet for a moment, thinking. "I guess it means paying more attention to what's important to you. Asking about your day and actually listening to the answer. Showing up when you need us to show up. It means remembering that I have goals and dreams that matter, even if they're different from yours or Emma's." "Right. And maybe sometimes it means saying no to Linda's parties if they conflict with your stuff." The fact that he called my thesis defense my stuff instead of my career or my achievement stung a little. But I decided to focus on the sentiment behind it rather than the wording. "I'd like that," I said. "Good. Because I love you, Jess. I don't want you to feel like you're not important to us." "I love you too." And I did love him, despite everything. But love wasn't always enough to bridge the gap between good intentions and actual change. Over the next few weeks, Mike did make an effort to be more attentive. He asked about my day when he got home from work, helped with dinner without being asked, and even suggested we go out for coffee one Saturday morning while Emma slept in. It wasn't dramatic change, but it was noticeable, and I appreciated it. Emma was slower to adjust her behavior, which wasn't entirely surprising given that she was 15 and self-absorption was developmentally appropriate. But she did ask about my plans for the fall and whether I was going to take more classes, and she even mentioned my degree to a friend who was considering community college. For a while, I thought maybe we'd turned a corner. Maybe my achievement and the conversations that followed had reset our family dynamic in a healthier direction. Then Linda decided to throw an end-of-summer barbecue. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, exactly 3 weeks after her pool party. It was for the following Saturday, with a note about celebrating the last weekend before school started, and wouldn't it be fun to get everyone together one more time. Mike brought it up at dinner that night. "Linda's having another party this weekend. What do you think?" "I think Linda has a lot of parties," I said mildly. "Mom's right," Emma chimed in. "Aunt Linda parties more than most college students." "She likes bringing people together," Mike said. But there was something defensive in his tone. "She does. The question is whether we want to be brought together this particular weekend." Mike looked at me carefully. "Do you not want to go?" "I don't not want to go. I just think it might be nice to have a weekend at home for once. Maybe work in the garden, read, spend time together as a family." "We spend time together all the time." "Do we? When was the last time we had a Saturday with no plans, no parties, no obligations?" Mike and Emma looked at each other, and I could see them trying to remember. The fact that they had to think about it proved my point. "We could skip this one," Mike said finally. "Linda would understand." But even as he said it, I could see the reluctance in his face. Linda's parties were fun, and Mike genuinely enjoyed them. More than that, they'd become a regular part of our social routine, a way of staying connected to extended family and feeling like we were part of something larger than ourselves. "No," I said. "We should go. I just think we should be more intentional about balancing social obligations with home time." "Okay," Mike said, clearly relieved. "We'll go to this one. but maybe we'll say no to the next one." I nodded, though we both knew there would always be a next one. Linda's social calendar was as reliable as the changing seasons. The barbecue was held at Linda and Dave's house, a sprawling suburban mansion with a beautifully landscaped backyard and a pool that could accommodate half the neighborhood. By the time we arrived at 5:30, the party was in full swing. Kids were splashing in the pool, adults were clustered around the bar and the outdoor kitchen, and Linda was flitting from group to group in a flowing sundress, making sure everyone had drinks and food and attention. I found myself a chair in a shaded corner and settled in with a plate of food, content to observe rather than participate. Emma immediately disappeared into the pool with her cousins, and Mike joined Dave and his brothers at the grill, beer in hand and baseball cap turned backward. "You look comfortable over here," a voice said behind me. I turned to see my sister-in-law Karen, Mike's older sister, settling into the chair next to mine. "Just enjoying the chaos from a safe distance," I replied. Karen laughed. "I know the feeling. Sometimes these family gatherings can be a bit much." "They're nice, though. Linda works hard to bring everyone together." "She does, though I sometimes wonder if she does it more for herself than for everyone else." I looked at Karen with interest. She was usually diplomatic about family dynamics, rarely saying anything critical about anyone. "What do you mean?" Karen was quiet for a moment, watching Linda direct traffic near the dessert table. "Don't get me wrong, I like Linda. But she has this need to be the center of everything, you know? The hostess, the organizer, the one everyone depends on for social connection. That's not necessarily a bad thing. No, it's not. But it means everyone else gets used to orbiting around her plans instead of making their own, including our husbands." There was something in Karen's tone that made me think she was speaking from personal experience. "Has it been a problem for you and Tom?" "Sometimes. Tom loves Linda's parties, and she's always asking him to help with setup or planning or whatever. It's innocent enough, but it means our weekends revolve around Linda's social calendar instead of what we might want to do as a family." I felt a little thrill of recognition. That's exactly how I feel sometimes. "I figured you might, especially after what happened with your thesis defense." "You heard about that?" Karen nodded. "Tom mentioned it. Said Mike felt terrible about missing it." He did feel terrible, but he still missed it. That's the thing about Linda. She has this way of making her needs seem urgent and everyone else's needs seem like they can wait. I don't think she does it on purpose, but the effect is the same. We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the party swirl around us. I felt validated by Karen's observations, but also sad. It was lonely to realize that other people in the family had noticed the same patterns that had been bothering me. "What do you do about it?" I asked. "We're learning to say no more often. And when we do come to things, we try to set boundaries. Like, we'll help with setup, but we leave by a certain time. Or we'll come to the big events, but skip some of the smaller ones." How does Linda react to that? She's not thrilled, but she adapts. She's not malicious, Jess. She just needs more attention and validation than most people. I thought about my conversation with Dave at the pool party, about his observation that Linda was jealous of my professional accomplishments. Maybe her need for attention wasn't just personality quirk, but a way of compensating for her own insecurities. "It's complicated," I said. "Family always is." As the evening wore on, I found myself watching the interactions around me with new eyes. Linda directing Dave to move the appetizer table, then praising him lavishly when he did it exactly right. Mike laughing loudly at one of her stories, his face animated in a way I rarely saw at home anymore. Emma posting Instagram photos with her cousins, all of them looking glamorous and carefree in Linda's perfectly curated backyard. I wasn't jealous exactly, but I was aware of feeling like an outsider looking in on my own family's social life. They all seemed so natural here, so comfortable with Linda's particular brand of orchestrated fun. Meanwhile, I was calculating how long we needed to stay before it would be polite to leave. Around 9 o'clock, as the party was winding down and people were starting to gather their things, Linda appeared at my chair with a concerned expression. "You've been awfully quiet tonight," she said, sitting down across from me. "Everything okay?" "Of course. Just enjoying watching everyone have fun." "You sure? You seem a little distant lately." I looked at her, trying to figure out how to respond. Linda was wearing a soft pink sundress that complemented her blonde hair perfectly, and her makeup was still flawless despite hours of party hosting. She looked genuinely concerned, and I realized that whatever her flaws, she did care about her family members' well-being. "I'm fine," I said, just adjusting to life after finishing my thesis. "Oh, right, your graduation thing. How exciting. I meant to ask you more about that." "It's okay. It's not that interesting to most people." "Don't say that. I think it's amazing that you went back to school. I keep thinking I should do something like that, but I never seem to find the time." There was something wistful in her voice that reminded me of Dave's observation about her feeling jealous of my achievements. "It's never too late," I said. "What would you want to study?" "I don't know. Interior design, maybe? Or event planning? I've always been good at organizing things and making them beautiful." "You really are. This party is gorgeous." Linda's face lit up at the compliment. "Thank you. I do love bringing people together and creating memorable experiences." And she was good at it, I realized. Whatever my feelings about her parties disrupting my family life, Linda had a genuine talent for hospitality and creating joy for other people. Maybe instead of resenting her gifts, I could appreciate them while also maintaining better boundaries around my own priorities. "You should look into event planning programs," I said. "You'd be fantastic at it." "Really? You think so?" "Absolutely. You have natural talent and years of experience." We talked for a few more minutes about local colleges and continuing education programs, and I was surprised to discover that Linda was more thoughtful and self-aware than I'd given her credit for. She knew her parties could be overwhelming sometimes, she said, but she genuinely enjoyed creating opportunities for family connection. "I grew up in a house where we never entertained," she confided. "My parents were very private people, and I always felt like we were missing out on something. So I guess I overcompensate now." The revelation added another layer to my understanding of Linda's behavior. She wasn't just seeking attention. She was creating the kind of family experiences she'd wished for as a child. "That makes sense," I said. "Family connection is important." "It is, but so is supporting each other's individual achievements." "I'm sorry Mike and Emma missed your defense. That was really important, and they should have been there." The apology caught me off guard. It was more direct acknowledgement of the situation than I'd gotten from my own husband and daughter. "Thank you," I said. "That means a lot." "I mean it. And maybe next time I could schedule around your important events instead of assuming everyone will schedule around mine." It was a small gesture, but it felt significant. Linda was offering to share the social calendar instead of dominating it. We rejoined the group for final goodbyes, and I found myself feeling more charitable toward the whole evening. Linda's parties might not be my favorite way to spend a Saturday night, but they did serve a purpose in keeping our extended family connected. And Linda herself was more complex and considerate than I'd realized. On the drive home, Mike was in his usual post-party good mood, chatting about conversations he'd had and funny things that had happened. Emma was texting with her cousins, already making plans for future hangouts. "Did you have a good time?" Mike asked as we pulled into our driveway. "I did, actually. I had an interesting conversation with Linda about her going back to school." "Really? Linda's thinking about school?" "Event planning or interior design. She has the skills for either one." "That's cool. Good for her." But there was something in Mike's tone that suggested he wasn't entirely thrilled about the idea of Linda pursuing her own professional goals. I wondered if he liked being needed for her party planning, liked feeling useful and appreciated in a way that didn't require any real emotional vulnerability. Over the next few days, I found myself thinking about the conversations I'd had at the barbecue. Karen's observations about family dynamics, Linda's admission about overcompensating for her childhood, Mike's complicated relationship with being needed. All of it painted a picture of people trying to get their emotional needs met in indirect ways, creating patterns that sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. I was still processing all of this when my phone rang on Tuesday evening. I was grading papers at the kitchen table while Mike watched television and Emma did homework upstairs. The caller ID showed my mother's number. "Hi, Mom," I said, tucking the phone between my ear and shoulder so I could keep working. "Hello, sweetheart. How are you doing?" "Good. Busy with the start of the school year, but good. I've been thinking about you. Your father and I are so proud of you for finishing your master's degree." I paused, pen in hand. My parents had sent a congratulations card after my defense, but we hadn't talked about it much beyond that. They lived in Florida now, retired and busy with their own activities, and our conversations usually focused on weather and health updates. "Thank you. That means a lot. I know it wasn't easy, working and going to school and taking care of your family. You've always been so determined when you set your mind to something." "I had good teachers," I said, smiling. "You and Dad showed me the importance of education." "We tried. But this was all you, Jessica. You should be very proud of yourself." There was something in my mother's voice that made me set down my pen and give her my full attention. "Is everything okay, Mom?" "Oh, everything's fine. I was talking to your Aunt Margaret yesterday, and she mentioned that Linda had another party this weekend. It got me thinking about balance and priorities and family expectations." Aunt Margaret was my father's sister, who lived near Linda and Dave and occasionally attended their gatherings. "What did she say?" "Nothing critical, just that Linda certainly knows how to throw a party. But it made me remember when you were growing up, how you were always the responsible one, the one who took care of everyone else's needs before your own." I felt my throat tighten unexpectedly. "I don't know about that." "You do. You were the peacemaker, the problem solver, the one who made sure everyone else was happy. It's a wonderful quality, but sometimes I worried that you didn't advocate for yourself enough." "Mom, I know I'm probably overstepping, but I want you to know that your accomplishments matter, sweetheart. Your goals and dreams are just as important as anyone else's in the family." I had to swallow hard before I could respond. "Thank you. I needed to hear that. I should have said it more often when you were younger. I should have made sure you knew that taking care of yourself isn't selfish." We talked for a few more minutes about my plans for the upcoming school year and their recent trip to visit old friends in North Carolina. But the real conversation was in what my mother had said about balance and self-advocacy. She was giving me permission to prioritize my own needs, even if it meant disappointing other people sometimes. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at the stack of papers I needed to grade. Mike was still watching television in the next room, and I could hear Emma's music playing softly upstairs. Normal domestic sounds that usually felt comforting, but tonight felt somehow distant. I thought about my mother's words, about patterns that had been established in childhood and carried forward into adult relationships. I thought about Karen's observation that everyone in our family had gotten used to orbiting around Linda's social calendar. I thought about Linda's confession that she overcompensated for her own childhood experiences by creating elaborate family gatherings. All of it pointed to the same conclusion. We were all doing the best we could with the emotional tools we'd been given. But sometimes those tools weren't adequate for creating the kind of relationships we actually wanted. The next day was Wednesday, which meant Emma had soccer practice after school and Mike would be working late. I usually used Wednesday evenings to catch up on grading and lesson planning. But instead, I found myself driving to the downtown coffee shop where I'd spent that Sunday afternoon after my defense. I ordered a latte and found a table by the window, then pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Rachel's number. "Jessica, how are you? How's married life treating Dr. Sullivan?" Rachel's enthusiasm made me smile, despite my complicated mood. "It's good. Complicated, but good." Complicated how? I found myself telling her about the family barbecue, about my conversations with Karen and Linda and my mother. Rachel listened without interrupting, occasionally making small sounds of understanding or surprise. "It sounds like you're figuring some important things out," she said when I finished. "I think I am, but I'm not sure what to do with any of it." "What do you want to do?" "I want to find a better balance. I want to stop feeling like my needs and goals always come second to everyone else's. But I also don't want to blow up my family relationships. Those aren't mutually exclusive, you know. You can set boundaries and still be a loving wife and mother." "Can I?" "Sometimes it feels like any boundary I set is going to disappoint someone." "Probably. But disappointing people occasionally is better than resenting them constantly." Rachel's bluntness was exactly what I needed to hear. "When did you get so wise?" "Therapy," she said with a laugh. "Lots and lots of therapy." We talked for a few more minutes about our own struggles with work-life balance and family expectations. By the time we hung up, I felt clearer about what I needed to do, even if I wasn't sure exactly how to do it. That weekend, Mike mentioned another invitation from Linda, a casual dinner party for the following Saturday. "Just a small group," he said. "Dave's brother and his wife are visiting from Portland, and Linda wants to introduce them to everyone." I looked at him across the breakfast table, where he was reading the invitation with the kind of mild interest he usually reserved for sports scores or weather forecasts. "I think I'll pass on this one," I said. Mike looked up, surprised. "Really? Why?" "I have some things I want to do at home. Organize my office, start planning for the school year, maybe read that novel I bought weeks ago." "You could do those things on Sunday." "I could. But I don't want to. I want to have a Saturday at home with no obligations and no schedule." Mike set down the invitation and studied my face. "Is this about Linda's parties again?" "It's about balance, Mike. It's about making choices that support my own needs and interests, not just everyone else's." "But it's just one dinner." "It's never just one dinner. There's always another party, another invitation, another family obligation. And somehow my priorities always get bumped to make room for them." Mike was quiet for a moment, clearly processing what I was saying. So, you don't want to go to any more of Linda's parties? I didn't say that. I said I don't want to go to this one. I want to have the option to say no sometimes without it being a big deal. Okay, he said finally. You should stay home if that's what you want. What about you and Emma? We can go without you. Linda will understand. But even as he said it, I could see the disappointment in his face. Going to Linda's parties was part of his social routine, and my absence would require him to explain my choice to other people. Or, I said carefully, you could stay home too. We could have a family evening at home. I guess. But I already told Dave I'd help him set up his new sound system before dinner. Of course he had. There was always some small task or favor that made his presence seem essential rather than optional. That's fine, I said. Go help Dave and enjoy the dinner. But I'm staying home. Are you sure? I'm sure. And I was sure, even though part of me felt guilty for potentially disappointing Linda and definitely disappointing Mike. This was what self-advocacy looked like, I realized. Making choices based on my own needs and preferences rather than always deferring to other people's expectations. Saturday evening arrived, and Mike and Emma left for Linda's dinner party around 5:30. They both kissed me goodbye and told me to have a relaxing evening, but I could sense their confusion about my choice to stay home. After they left, I wandered through our quiet house, trying to remember the last time I'd had it to myself for an entire evening. I made myself a simple dinner and ate it on the porch while reading my novel. I organized my home office, setting up a proper workspace now that I didn't need it for thesis research. I took a long bath with expensive bath salts I'd been saving for a special occasion. It was peaceful and restorative in a way I hadn't expected. No one needed anything from me. No one was asking me to fetch drinks or listen to stories or mediate family dynamics. I could just exist in my own space and attend to my own needs. Around 9:30, my phone buzzed with a text from Mike. Having a good time. Linda asked about you. Home by 11. I texted back. Tell her I said hi, enjoying the quiet. At 10:45, I heard Mike's truck in the driveway. I was reading in bed, and I listened to him and Emma come inside, their voices carrying upstairs as they discussed the evening. Mom missed a good time, Emma was saying. The food was amazing, and Uncle Dave's new sound system is incredible. She needed some downtime, Mike replied. She's been working hard lately. It was a small thing, but I appreciated that he framed my absence positively, rather than making it sound like I was being antisocial or difficult. Mike came upstairs a few minutes later, changing into his pajamas while telling me about the dinner conversation and the music Dave had played on his new speakers. Did Linda mind that I wasn't there? I asked. She said to tell you that you're welcome anytime, but she understands that everyone needs their own space sometimes. That was nice of her. It was. She's actually pretty understanding when you talk to her directly instead of just going along with everything. I looked at Mike with interest. Did you talk to her about it? A little. When she asked where you were, I explained that you wanted a quiet evening at home. She said she totally got it, that sometimes she feels overwhelmed by her own parties, but feels like she can't skip them because she's the hostess. That's very honest of her. Yeah, I think she's more self-aware than we give her credit for. We turned off the lights and settled into bed, and I found myself feeling more connected to Mike than I had in weeks. Not because we'd spent the evening together, but because he'd respected my choice and represented it fairly to other people. How was your evening at home? He asked in the darkness. Perfect, I said, and meant it. Good. You deserve perfect evenings. It was such a simple statement, but it felt significant. Recognition that I deserved good things, that my happiness mattered, that taking care of myself wasn't selfish or unreasonable. Over the next few weeks, I continued practicing this new form of self-advocacy. When Emma asked me to drive her to the mall on a Saturday morning when I'd planned to work in the garden, I suggested she ask a friend's parent or wait until Sunday. When Mike mentioned that Linda needed help decorating for her nephew's graduation party, I simply said, "That sounds like something you could help with if you want to." At first, they were confused by my responses. Emma complained that I was being mean, and Mike seemed genuinely puzzled by my sudden unavailability for everyone else's priorities. But gradually, something shifted. Emma started planning ahead and asking friends for rides, instead of assuming I'd drop everything to chauffeur her around. Mike began checking with me before volunteering us for family obligations. And Linda, surprising everyone, started asking what worked for our schedule before setting dates for her gatherings. The strangest part was how much more they seemed to value my time and opinions once I started valuing them myself. When I did choose to help with something or attend an event, it felt like a genuine gift rather than an obligation. My presence became something they appreciated rather than something they took for granted. 3 months later, when I decided to apply for doctoral programs, Mike was the first person I told. He listened carefully to my plans and asked thoughtful questions about timing and logistics. Emma researched programs with me and helped me organize my application materials. This time, when I had something important to celebrate or worry about, they showed up without being asked, because I'd finally learned that teaching people how to treat you starts with how you treat yourself.